reference, this book's been going since 2016, end of 2016, which is quite a long time, nearly 10 years ago at this point. Shows what kind of person I am in terms of getting things done that are side projects. For reference as well, I do actually have main sketchbooks and stuff that I end up filling up a lot more. This one is literally just always been a side one to try and improve at hands, since those are always a topic that artists really seem to struggle with, and I still struggle with a lot. So let's get in and actually have a look at what is already done in here. So this was my first one. I remember sitting in class back in 2016 and doing it of my own hand. And then from here on out, everything else has been referenced from images online mostly, except for maybe that one possibly. And this is all, I think, 2016, when I was really motivated to try and get through it. However, that did not last so long, since now we are in 2019. So now that we're in 2019, that's when I decided to get back into it again. You know, decided that not all the drawings had to be like perfect hands. In fact, I thought it would be better if I had tried some time sketches and things, working through it, trying to get as many pages filled as I could, because I've always wanted to get this one done. More 90-second ones, more of them. And so I actually got through a few pages this time around. So those ones were obviously my hands. At the time I actually had fingernails. And then we're in 2021, so clearly I was sticking really well to it. You know how it is. And so, you know, I decided I'd draw 50 hands in 5 days. I can't even remember if I actually managed to do it, so I guess I will find out. But yeah, I feel like online there's like a lot of good references for hands and stuff. You know, I think it's just, they get a bit boring after a bit, drawing the same thing over and over again, so you've really got to try and find some interesting different poses and things. Oh, and I did complete that challenge actually, because that was my 50th set of hands. Now, to try and make things more entertaining for myself, I did try and switch up the materials occasionally. I found that doing that seems to help a lot. We now jump across to 2022, so another year down the line. Really good to know that I was self-aware, because then I immediately went across to 2023 again, so skipped another year. We love that. And then once again, trying to just do 5-minute sketches. My 5-minute sketches had improved a decent bit, I think, since previous ones. You know, overall I have been drawing other things other than hands, but you know, trying to draw from my mind is the biggest issue. As you can see, still pretty terrible when drawing without any references. Struggling. These ones, not bad, I didn't mind them. Good fun. Trying watercolors with them to try and make the exercises a bit more entertaining and think about some shadows and stuff. And that's where we ended off. So yeah, I've never really been particularly consistent, considering that this is how much of the book I've finished since 2016, so in like 8 years. So if I've counted correctly, I have filled up 63 pages out of 160 in this book, which means I have broken the 100 mark on how many pages are left, but not by very much. So basically the plan is to finally finish this book once and for all. I want to finish these 97 pages before the end of the year. So how doable actually is this goal? Well, basically, according to Google, I have 49 days until New Year. So basically, in my eyes, if I can do about 2 pages per day, I should be not too far off of my goal. To be fair, I have set this goal in the past as well, and each time it has not been particularly successful. So I can't say for the likelihood of me actually managing to complete it in time. However, I'm hoping that maybe recording it will leave me a little bit more accountable, and yeah, only way to find out, I guess, is to start. And so, without further ado, let's begin. I've got to say as well, it felt weird to be finally drawing traditionally again after so long, since I'd been more so focusing on my crocheting and digital drawing instead. So I went into these drawings knowing that they were warm-ups of some sort and that they wouldn't really be the best hands I'd ever drawn in my entire life. I think also starting a challenge of sorts like this can be quite intimidating, so I figured the best thing was to just get down whatever I could. Okay, that's the first 2 pages done. So, yeah, hopefully me dating the page doesn't create a bad luck like the last few times, and I can actually get through this time, but we shall see what happens. And while I'm drawing in the background and stuff, I thought that it might be nice to just have a little bit of a chat about some things that have been on my mind recently. But before I get into any of it and stuff, I do want to preface, first of all, this is my first time trying to make a YouTube video, so thanks for watching, if you're watching, and thanks for putting up with the shoddily done aspects of the video. Also, I'm no expert at anything I'm talking about at all. I'm only here to have a yap, and if you also want to yap in the comments or anything, please do. I'd like to have a little read on people's opinions on these sort of topics and things and hear from other artists. So for this video, I thought a good topic to talk about would be motivation and failing to meet goals as an artist. I feel like these topics are pretty relevant to this video because this book has certainly been an up and down in motivation when I've been working on it. Not only that, but also the amount of times I've failed to reach my goals with it has been rather demotivating at times. First of all, I think motivation is kind of different for everybody and is a very individual thing. So obviously what sort of works for me and stuff may not necessarily work for you. In saying that though, while I do think motivation can be a good drive to do art, I don't think it's a good idea to ever rely fully on it. Throughout my life, I've gone through a lot of periods of not really drawing at all or not very much. For me, the best thing in these periods of time was to have something that kind of forced me to still keep drawing and to keep improving. For me in high school, that was my after-school art classes. Personally, I found that they kept me accountable and kind of on a schedule of where no matter how I was feeling, I would sort of be forced to show up and draw something at least. Once I finished high school, it was then uni that did the same thing for me. However, now that I've finished uni and the only thing I have actually scheduled is work, I have nothing to keep myself accountable except for myself. Which means now more than ever, it's really important for me to find a form of motivation or a way to force myself to keep doing my art if I want to do it for a living, or even as a hobby. I think that it's also worth mentioning that sometimes it can be a little bit of a taboo to talk about creatives not wanting to be creative or not enjoying the creative process. And I feel like the important thing to say about that is that you aren't alone in feeling that pretty much every single creative will go through it. So after relying on my schedule for years to keep me consistent, how am I doing it now? For me, it's been a constant battle to stay consistent, and it's not until recently that I've actually felt like I've figured it out to some extent. I found that my biggest help has been goal setting. Whether you use a journal or a website or a task board or whatever works for you, I just feel like writing down the results that you want is one of the best things you can do. Now, I will say this actually hasn't always worked for me, and this is actually the first time that it's really worked for me for a prolonged amount of time. I think this time the difference is that I'm really focusing on being more flexible and constantly updating and reflecting on the methods that I'm using to keep organized. Say, for example, in the past I've used bullet journals, task boards, things like that, and I just always gave up not far in because they felt too permanent once I'd written it down. I don't know why, just the fact that I couldn't just delete whatever I'd written down if I changed my mind made it stressful for me. And you don't want your goal setting to be stressful because arguably that should be the least stressful part. Nowadays I use Notion, and for me it's really worked. The fact that I can delete things and move things around and change stuff makes it really enjoyable to use, and I always find myself looking forward to like the start of a new month because I'm looking forward to setting new goals. Basically, it's just a circle. So I gain motivation from making the goals, then I gain motivation from seeing them done, and therefore then I set more goals. And of course, this hasn't resolved everything. Like, I do still go through art slumps. However, now I kind of have a way to escape them easier. Usually I tend to do this through like self-reflection and then like making an action plan of some sort to get out of it. Speaking of slumps, it's probably a good time to transition into talking about dealing with failure, not just as an artist, but also in general. Not shocking news, but I think most of us are way too harsh on ourselves. At least I know that I am. Despite knowing this, I still can't help but be super mean to myself when I make like insignificant mistakes. I'm someone who tends to dwell on negative emotions, so I've realized more recently that I really have to take action quickly to stop the voices from getting in my head. Generally, when it comes to goals and failing to meet them, I find that reflecting really helps me. There's been a lot of instances with goals where I haven't completed them, and then on further thought, it's because they weren't really that urgently needing to get done, or I found out that my approach to them was kind of wrong. At that point, I'll then write the goal with the changes I made in mind, or I'll just discard it if it's no longer relevant to me. I will also delete the old goal because I don't really think that you need the constant reminder just sitting there that you didn't finish something that you wanted to. Dwelling on it isn't the important thing. What's important is remembering what needs to be done. But despite all of this like advice talk, I do still have a lot of times where I feel disappointed in how little I feel like I've accomplished. And it always leads to me getting even less done. It really makes me realize how reliant I am on being productive to feel satisfaction and to feel happy within myself. So yeah, I'm still very much working on this. Anyways, on a more focused level, I feel like drawing in particular is a hobby that has a lot of potential for failure, especially as you train your artistic eye more and you can see a lot of errors that you originally couldn't see. And this is true of all skills, but I just feel as though with drawing it's a lot more noticeable. Like when I crochet, I don't go in expecting to mess up and fail what I'm making, whereas with drawing, I go in with like half the expectation that it's not going to go very well. And that might also be because I'm not picky enough with my crochet or I'm not good enough with my drawing. Drawing is certainly a skill for the patient, and as someone who is not naturally patient, I will fight pretty hard this whole way to get good at it. And then you have to deal with the whole issue of comparing yourself to other artists, especially people who are around your age or younger. A lot of the time you start to feel like you should be better than what you currently are, and that you should have worked harder when you were younger, but honestly, there's really not much you can do about that other than work hard in the present. There's also the issue of when you're trying to sell your art or post it, and you start to wonder like, am I really worthy of doing this, especially when there's people who are better than me who don't do the same? But there's always going to be someone who's better than you, and you can't let that stop you from doing what you want to do. And I can guarantee that you will feel worse in the future if you stop now, when you will keep asking, what if I had continued and what if I hadn't given up? There's a lot that I wish I had done earlier, but I didn't because I was scared of failure or I was embarrassed. And that has really held me back from so many great experiences. And there's a lot that I wish I had done or was currently doing, but circumstances just don't allow for it. And I just have to accept that. Now I do what I can do, and I try to continue to push myself despite having doubts, where reasonable of course. And the things that I can't do now, I put away for later. These goals aren't thrown away forever, and they might come into my life at a better time where I can fully focus on them. It's just that at this time in my life, I have chosen to make my priority my art, which means that I do have to sacrifice some of my other hobbies. But yeah, in summary, don't let failure stop you, and you have to make mistakes to get better. In fact, making mistakes is one of the quickest and best ways to get better, in my opinion. In these hand drawing studies, I have made tons of errors, especially when I'm drawing from my mind. That's partially why I rely so heavily on reference, because I am scared of what horrors I will create if I try and draw without any. But I need to keep doing it anyways, because that's how I find out where I have holes in my knowledge. And then by using references to critique my drawings from my mind, it makes me click in my brain like, don't do that anymore. And I just have to keep doing that over and over and over until it becomes natural and I can just tell when I'm doing something wrong, rather than having to check with an outer source. Anyways, as we're coming to my last few drawings, I think it's about time that I wrap up on the rambling. If you agree or disagree or have anything to add to what I've said, please throw it in the comments. I'd be happy to have a conversation. And yeah, with that, I will stop talking as a voiceover and throw it back to real-time me. Alright, it is now December 1st and I have finished the amount of pages I wanted to finish for November. So hopefully where I'm at, I will put the amount of pages left on the screen because I haven't figured that out yet. But hopefully the amount I have left is doable next month despite having a busy schedule. The pages I did today was this one where I figured out when drawing from my mind I'm really bad at fingers, so that will be something I need to practice in December. Then I did 30-second sketches, 1 minute, 2 minute, and more 2 minute. There's 5 minute ones. But yeah, I think that's about it for this video. I will hopefully have another video that's a follow-up one posted at the end of December or very, very early January. But yeah, it will be a hectic month. But pray for me. Fingers crossed I will be able to get the rest of this thing done because we are past, believe we're past the halfway mark and should be good to go. But yeah, thanks again for watching if you got all the way through this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.